I wasn't planning to spend 24 hours inside the chaotic universe of Brainrot, but once I clicked Start, the screen practically pulled me in like a vortex of glitter, glitches, and oddly confident dancing characters. My goal was simple: survive, upgrade, and maybe not lose my sanity along the way. But from the first minute, the game greeted me with a kind of energy that feels like a sugar rush mixed with a scream. Characters kept spawning, shouting random catchphrases that echoed through my headphones like a ritual chant. I knew instantly that this wasn't going to be a normal gaming session. It was going to be an endurance test of noise, chaos, and pure brainrot power. The first challenge appeared before I could even adjust the settings. A neon sign flickered. Collect 5 rotted tokens before the timer ends. Easy, right? Wrong. The tokens were floating across platforms that moved like they were possessed by an impatient child shaking a table. My character kept sliding, tripping, bouncing off walls that shouldn't even be bouncy. At one point, I swear the map tilted a full 40 degrees just to spite me. I grabbed my first token, celebrating for exactly half a second, before a Meowl clone dashed across my screen, screamed, "Ring ring bus," and stole the second token right out of my path. And that was only minute 3. As the clock ticked down, I realized I had to learn the rhythm of the chaos rather than fight it. Brainrot wasn't a game you controlled. It was a storm you tried to surf on. Every platform pulsed to a strange beat. Every character moved unpredictably, and every objective shifted right as I was about to complete it. I launched myself across a glowing ramp, grabbed the 3rd and 4th tokens, and landed on a platform shaped like a giant burrito. It immediately launched me upward like a spring-loaded cannon. With no control of my trajectory, I soared across the map and collided headfirst with the final token. Somehow I completed the challenge with 1 second left. The game rewarded me with my first upgrade. Level 2 Rotwalker. My character grew a little taller, a little shinier, and gained what looked like LED shoelaces that sparkled with every step. But the upgrade came with a catch. My movement speed doubled, making everything twice as uncontrollable. I sprinted across the map like a toddler full of chocolate, bumping into objects that made cartoonish sound effects. The game congratulated me with a text bubble. "You can't stop now." It was both encouraging and threatening. My first hour passed in what felt like 15 chaotic minutes. Brainrot time wasn't real time. It was a weird dimension where stress and excitement merged into one glowing blur. New characters unlocked around me. La Combinación whirling in circles, Burrito Bandito sliding around on one knee, Strawberry Elephant stomping with suspicious enthusiasm. They weren't enemies. They weren't allies. They were simply chaotic neighbors that refused to mind their own business. Hour 2 introduced my first major challenge. The floor is la beep beep. Every surface turned unstable, shaking and glowing as if charged with electricity. The objective was to survive for 90 seconds while everything tried to launch me into the digital void. I hopped from platform to platform, dodging spinning tacos, bouncing quesadillos, and a very confused aquanaut who kept yelling blub blub as he floated by. At one point, the floor beneath me exploded into confetti, and I had to grab onto a flying bus sign to survive. When the timer ended, I wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. My reward for surviving the chaos? Level 3 Rotted Runner, complete with a glowing aura that made me look like a cosmic disco ball. But that wasn't the impressive part. I unlocked a brand new ability, Rotted Dash, a high-speed burst that let me cut through obstacles like a glitching bullet. Of course, it also sent me flying off the map 3 times before I learned how to use it properly. The game mocked me with a giant pop-up every time. "Try again, you fried pineapple." By hour 4, Brainrot already felt like a fever dream I wasn't sure I'd escape. The map changed again, now shifting into Brainrot City, a glowing neon metropolis full of moving billboards and NPCs running around with no purpose. Every corner lit up with dancing lights and random explosions. I had to chase down 3 corrupted code fragments while dodging street performers who kept trying to rope me into their routines. Somehow, I succeeded, although one billboard did fall on me at the end. The next upgrade was a big one. Level 4, Brainrotted Adventurer. My character's animations became smoother, my dash became longer, and I unlocked a trail of floating sparkles that followed me constantly like paparazzi. But the game wasn't done. A huge warning flashed across the screen. Night mode unlocked. Survive if you can. The sky darkened. The music dropped into a heavy bass rhythm, and somewhere in the distance I heard the sound of something large waking up. As the clock moved into hour 5, the atmosphere shifted from chaotic funny to chaotic dangerous. Shadows crawled across the floor, glitch lines broke through the environment, and a deep robotic voice echoed through the city. "You have entered the night of rotting." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I did know one thing. Whatever was coming next wasn't friendly. My palms started sweating. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the soundtrack. And then, the ground shook. From the shadows emerged a colossal figure, something that looked like Meowl but 10 times the size, glitching between frames, its eyes glowing neon red. The game identified it as Boss Mega Meowl, 3% stable. Before I could react, it roared with a distorted echo that shook the entire city. The boss fight had begun without warning. and I only had my level 4 abilities to survive. With the city collapsing around me and the Mega Meow stomping through buildings like they were made of cardboard, I activated my rotted dash and sprinted toward the only safe area I could find. The timer appeared on my screen. Night mode remaining, 19 hours. If this was only the first night event, I knew the next 20 hours would only get worse. The Mega Meowl's roar echoed across Brainrot City like a corrupted alarm bell, shaking neon lights loose from the skyscrapers around me. Its giant paws slammed into the streets, creating waves of glitch energy that rippled toward me like shockwaves. I sprinted across a collapsing sidewalk, using rotted dash to dodge debris flying through the air like pixelated meteors. Every second felt like a countdown to disaster. My headphones pulsed with heavy bass that didn't match the music. It was the sound of the boss breathing. I wasn't sure if this was still a game or if I had crossed into some kind of digital nightmare. The objective finally flashed on my screen in giant shaking text. Survive for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That sounded easy. But Mega Meowl wasn't attacking like a normal boss. It moved like a glitch that wanted revenge. It teleported randomly across rooftops, duplicated itself into flickering shadows, and launched laser-like meows that sliced through buildings. I dodged left, rolled right, and barely avoided being crushed by an entire taco billboard that Mega Meowl ripped off a wall and threw directly at me. Somehow, I stayed alive longer than expected, though my sanity was starting to crack. With 3 minutes remaining, the city's lights flickered off, leaving everything in pitch-black darkness. The only illumination came from Mega Meowl's glowing eyes, scanning the streets like searchlights hunting prey. The music dropped to a low, distorted hum, making my stomach twist. I crouched behind a crushed bus, watching the enormous creature stomp through the streets, glitching in and out like a bad memory trying to become real. When its eyes passed over my hiding spot, my screen shook violently, and the game whispered, "It sees everything." I ran before it could turn me into digital dust. I activated rotted dash repeatedly, weaving between destroyed buildings and glitch fragments, floating through the air. Mega Meowl roared again, unleashing a shockwave that lifted me off the ground and sent me crashing into a holographic vending machine. The vending machine then exploded into confetti, launching me like a slingshot across the map. Surprisingly, this accidental stunt helped. I landed on top of a skyscraper, just as Mega Meowl slammed its paw into where I had been standing. 2 minutes left. My heart was beating faster than my character's glowing LED shoes. At the 1-minute mark, the game decided things weren't chaotic enough and spawned 3 additional hazards. Falling buses, exploding ice cream cones, and roaming La Combinación spinning like Beyblades. I dodged a cone that detonated behind me like a sugary grenade, sprinted under a falling bus, and barely leaped over a La Combinación spinning so fast it looked like a blender. Mega Meowl let out a distorted screech and fired a laser down the street that carved a glowing scar in the asphalt. I jumped to another rooftop to avoid the blast, sweating both in-game and in real life. Finally, the timer hit 0. A massive shockwave pulsed out from Mega Meowl, freezing everything in place before the boss distorted into a glitchy pixel storm. The text on my screen flickered dramatically. "You survived the first night." My reward popped up, level 5 Rotted Survivor. My character gained a new neon aura, metallic gloves, and best of all, a new ability, Rotted Slide, letting me glide across surfaces like a rocket-powered dancer. But I didn't have time to celebrate. The city shifted again. The ground cracked apart, revealing a glowing tunnel underneath the streets. A swirling portal rose from the center, pulling in debris like a digital black hole. The sky above turned purple, filled with glitching symbols that floated like corrupted constellations. A message appeared. "Enter the Underrot. Night 2 begins." I swallowed hard. If Night 1 nearly destroyed me, Night 2 was probably going to finish the job. I dove into the portal and landed in what looked like a distorted subway system made of neon rails, floating platforms, and broken vending machines that followed me like they were sentient. Strange Brainrot NPCs wandered the tunnels, repeating catchphrases in reverse, their heads twitching in glitch loops. The objective: find 3 core shards to stabilize your sanity. Yes, the game actually said sanity. Apparently, even it knew this was too much. The first shard was guarded by a corrupted Wombo Rollo spinning uncontrollably down a narrow tunnel, knocking over everything like a destructive bowling ball. I used Rotted Slide to slip underneath it, grabbed the shard, and sprinted out of the way as it ricocheted off walls. The second shard hovered above a moving train made of neon cubes. I had to jump between glitch-warping platforms that shifted at random angles. One wrong step and I'd fall into the void beneath. After almost missing the final jump, I caught the shard mid-air, screaming in panic. The third shard was deep inside a tight maze full of static screens showing distorted versions of my character. Each time I turned a corner, the screens whispered lines like, "You can't escape!" and 20 hours left. When I finally reached the glowing shard, the maze sealed itself shut, forcing me to use Rotted Dash to punch through a collapsing wall. As soon as I touched the shard, the world vibrated violently, and the text flashed. Sanity, 62%, temporarily stable. With all 3 shards collected, the underrot began collapsing behind me like a closing throat of digital corruption. I sprinted through tunnels that folded in on themselves, dodging flickering trains and broken chunks of rail. At the final jump, I launched myself upward and burst through a portal back into Brainrot City. The night sky now glowed crimson, and the city was shaking. Again. Then I heard it. A deeper roar. Louder than Mega Meowl. Something much bigger. The ground split open, neon flames erupted, and a massive silhouette crawled out of the void. The game identified it as Boss, Ultra-Rotted King, 1% stable. And just like that, Night 3 began. The Ultra-Rotted King rose from the crater like a titan built from glitches, neon fragments, and screaming sound files stitched together. Its body pulsed with unstable code, and every step shook Brainrot City as if it were made of vibrating holograms. The creature's voice wasn't a roar. It was thousands of corrupted NPC voices layered together, speaking in broken brainrot phrases that overlapped into chilling static. My screen dimmed, brightened, flickered, then displayed the cruel objective: survive until dawn. Dawn was still more than 10 hours away. The king's first attack was a shockwave that tore open the streets, pulling entire buildings into the void beneath the city. I ran across crumbling roads, my rotted slide carrying me over gaps that stretched wider every second. Lamille combinations spawned out of thin air, running around screaming nonsense as the king stomped near them, sending them flying like confetti. I dodged a falling tower and sprinted toward a glowing safe zone, only for the zone to flicker out of existence the moment I reached it. The game laughed at me with a message. There is no safe zone tonight. To survive, I needed upgrades fast. The game spawned floating challenges across the collapsing city. I chased the first one, a glowing orb labeled Glitch Race, that teleported me into a speed trial on top of fast-moving neon rails. Using Rotted Dash and Rotted Slide in perfect rhythm, I completed the course just as the rails exploded behind me. My reward, level 6. Rotted Ascender, granting temporary double jump and increased speed. I barely had time to celebrate before the king hurled a massive chunk of corrupted terrain my way. The second challenge involved collecting 5 floating data fragments scattered across skyscraper rooftops. The catch: the rooftops were collapsing one by one, leaving me fewer places to land. I jumped between buildings using my new double jump, grabbing fragments while debris fell like neon rain around me. One fragment hovered dangerously close to the king's mouth, but I dashed in, grabbed it, and slid out before its jaws snapped shut. My reward: level 7 Rotted Controller, giving me a temporary shield of glitch energy. But the king wasn't slowing down. It unleashed beams of unstable code that sliced through the city like massive lasers. I dodged them while sprinting across broken platforms, deflecting debris with my glitch shield. The music intensified, becoming a chaotic mix of brainrot beats and corrupted audio files. My screen constantly shook, warning me that stability was dropping. When the king's health bar appeared, it was gigantic, far larger than any boss I had faced. Worse yet, the bar was labeled stability, not health, meaning the world itself depended on defeating it. At hour 17, I triggered the third challenge: escape the data maze. The city transformed around me into a labyrinth of floating holographic walls. The king reached in with its massive claw, tearing apart sections of the maze while I navigated narrow corridors. Every turn could lead to a dead end or a collapsing floor. When I finally reached the center, I activated a stabilizer beacon that sent a blast of light across the maze. Stability increased by 6%. Only 6%. I realized then how long this night would be. Hours passed in a blur of sprinting, dodging, sliding, and narrowly avoiding glitch anomalies that spawned everywhere. I completed challenge after challenge, destroying corruption nodes, outrunning collapsing bridges, hacking floating terminals mid-air, and surviving ambushes from corrupted NPC swarms. Each challenge rewarded a new upgrade: level 8 Rotted Warrior, level 9 Rotted Defier, level 10 Rotted Finalist. By hour 20, I was glowing so brightly with upgrades that my character looked like a walking supernova of brainrot energy. The final battle began as the sun approached the horizon. The king screamed, creating a vortex that pulled the entire city toward its core. I activated every ability I had, dashing up debris, sliding across air platforms, double jumping through falling chunks of skyscraper. I reached the king's head, where a massive glowing weak point pulsed like an unstable heart. The game gave me one final command: strike with everything. I launched my strongest Rotted Dash directly into the core. The explosion that followed shattered my screen into blinding white light. The king roared, cracking apart as beams of color burst from its body, dissolving it into a massive cascade of neon fragments. The city stopped falling. The vortex collapsed. The sky brightened. A message appeared slowly, glitching, then stabilizing. Dawn has arrived. Brainrot City began reforming itself, buildings stitching back together, NPCs respawning with confused expressions. My character floated gently back onto the street as soft morning light mixed with neon reflections. A final upgrade popped up: level 11 Rotted Legend, max rank. My character now radiated an aura so bright it looked unreal. Then the game displayed the final message. You survived 24 hours. Few ever do. I sat back in my chair, exhausted, heart pounding, hands shaking. Brainrot wasn't just a game, it was a storm, a fever dream, a test of pure chaos endurance. But as the credits rolled in glitchy rainbow text, I realized something. I would absolutely play it again. Because in the end, the chaos, the upgrades, the impossible bosses, it was addicting in the most Brainrot way possible. And just when I thought it was over, one final line appeared at the bottom of the screen. Coming soon, 48-hour mode. I closed the game immediately.